Father's Day had always been an odd one for me. Quiet, sometimes forgotten, never quite mine. You'd think that after raising two children and supporting a wife's dreams from scratch, there would be at least one day in the year when I'd feel seen. But I had long learned that the world often only remembers the ones in front of the cameras, not the ones holding the lights. My name is Leonard Carter. I'm a father of two, though now I sometimes say three. That story, however, comes a little later. For now, let me tell you about the day I realized my name was on the invitation, but not in their hearts. Before we dive into the story, we'll love to thank you for your continued support to this channel. If you enjoy this story and stories like this, kindly subscribe and hit on the notification button so you don't miss any of our stories. Our shout-out goes to Prabhakaran Vincent from Chennai, India. We will love to hear from you also. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments section. We'll love to give you a shout-out in our next video. Now let's begin. I worked two jobs most of my life. Mail clerk by day, night shift truck driver by evening. There were years when I didn't know what a full night's sleep felt like. But I never complained. I did it all so my kids, Marcus and Elise, could go to college and follow their dreams. So my wife, Diane, could turn her little vision board into a thriving art gallery known across the city. I paid the bills, signed the loans, skipped vacations, and ignored my own fatigue because I believed in them. And I believed that, one day, I'd sit at a table surrounded by laughter and love, proud of the family I'd helped shape. But Father's Day 2012 told me another story. That year, Diane's annual Father's Day event was bigger than ever. She'd turned it into a gala, complete with live music, catered hors d'oeuvres, and a who's who of elite fathers from her clientele. A week before, she handed me a golden-trimmed invitation. "Wear the Navy suit," she said. "It's going to be a huge night. Press will be there too." I nodded, though a part of me hoped she'd suggest something quieter. Just us, maybe dinner at home. But she didn't. The evening arrived, and I parked 2 blocks away. Valet was for VIP guests only, they said. My feet hurt before I even reached the door. I walked in unnoticed. The room sparkled with crystal chandeliers, soft jazz, and expensive perfume. My name was printed neatly on a placard, Mr. and Mrs. Leonard Carter. I sat at the round table, perfectly laid with silverware I didn't need and glasses I wouldn't drink from. I waited and waited. Diane never came to sit beside me. She floated around the gallery like a butterfly, laughing, hugging, posing for cameras. She passed my table 3 times without stopping. On the 4th, she gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes and mouth. "I'll be there soon." She never came. I checked my phone. A text from Elise. "At my boyfriend's family dinner. Love you, Dad." Marcus hadn't replied yet, but I already knew what was coming. Got called into overtime. "Sorry, Pop." I looked around at all the other fathers, surrounded by family, friends, and admirers. Toasts were made, hands shaken, laughs shared. And there I was, dressed in my Navy suit, sitting alone at a table bearing both our names. That's when it hit me. I wasn't invited as a husband, not even as a father. I was just there to fill a seat and make the optics look complete. I stayed for another 20 minutes, pretending to sip from a champagne glass that had long gone warm. Then I stood up, quietly tucked the name card into my pocket, and slipped out the door. Nobody stopped me. Nobody noticed I was gone. Outside, the air was cool, and the streets were mostly empty. I should have gone home, but something told me to keep walking. I wasn't ready to sit on the couch again, alone, watching videos of my kids when they still ran to me just to show me their drawings. As I passed a small liquor store near the corner, I paused. That's when I saw him. A boy, maybe 15, wearing a thin hoodie that clung to his back in the rain. He was struggling to hold onto a torn grocery bag, the contents sagging through the wet plastic. I recognized him. He worked at the local pharmacy. Tyler, I think. I'd seen him a few times stocking shelves or sweeping the floor, always quiet, always tired. But now, something was different. He looked like he was running from the world. He crossed the street and turned down an alley. I followed. I didn't know why. Maybe I needed to feel useful. Maybe I just didn't want the night to end with silence. Maybe I already sensed what was coming. He didn't see me. I kept a respectful distance, careful not to scare him. He eventually slipped through a side door of an old warehouse, the kind the city had forgotten. I walked up slowly and peeked inside. There, beside a flickering camping lantern, was an old mattress. On it lay a man. Frail, coughing, half covered in a thin blanket. Tyler knelt beside him, unpacking the groceries with shaky hands. The boy had been keeping them both alive in that cold, forgotten space. I didn't walk away. I stepped inside. "Evening," I said gently. "Didn't mean to startle you." Tyler stood up, eyes wide. He didn't recognize me at first. "I've seen you at the pharmacy," I added. "You're Tyler, right?" He nodded, still cautious. "I saw you struggling with the bag, figured I'd help." "Is he your dad?" Another nod. I took a step closer, careful and calm. "Does he have anyone else?" "No," Tyler said softly. "It's just us now." I looked at the mattress, the flickering lantern, the silence hanging in the air like a sigh. And for reasons I couldn't explain at the time, I pulled off my jacket, rolled up my sleeves, and said, "All right then. Let's start with getting him something warm." That night, in a forgotten corner of the city, I found something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The next morning, I returned. I didn't tell Diane. I didn't tell anyone. I just woke up, packed a flask of hot soup, some clean socks, and a couple of old sweaters from my closet, and drove back to the warehouse. I told myself I was just checking in, just making sure the boy and his father had survived the night. But deep down, I knew I was returning to something more than charity. I was returning to something real, something that made me feel alive again. The city was just waking up, the streets still glistening from last night's rain. As I parked outside the old warehouse, I half expected them to be gone. But when I opened the door and stepped inside, there they were. Tyler was crouched near his father, spooning soup from a cracked bowl into the old man's mouth. The lantern had run out of fuel, and they'd lit a few candles Tyler must have taken from the pharmacy. When he saw me, he froze. Not in fear, but surprise. The kind of surprise you see on someone's face when life finally remembers they exist. "You came back," he said. "Of course I did," I replied, placing the bag gently on the ground. Nobody should have to fight alone. He didn't speak again for a while. I sat beside them on the cold concrete floor, opening the soup and pouring some into the bowl. Walter, the father, opened his eyes slightly. They were dull but aware. He tried to speak, but his voice was dry and cracked. I nodded at him gently. "Don't force it. Just rest." That morning passed quietly. We didn't talk much. But sometimes, it's in the silence that you learn the most about someone. I watched Tyler clean his father's face with a damp cloth, rearrange his blankets, then fold the edges of a torn newspaper into small pads to cushion the hard ground beneath the mattress. He moved with the calm efficiency of someone who had been doing this alone for far too long. He reminded me of myself. Before the gallery openings, before the distant kids, before I became invisible to the family I built with my own hands. Back when I was just a man doing his best for people who didn't always understand the cost. I learned more over the next few days. Tyler had dropped out of high school 6 months ago when his father collapsed from untreated pneumonia. They'd been evicted from their apartment after the bills piled up. He picked up shifts at the pharmacy and ran errands for a small grocery shop to buy food and medicine. He never told anyone, never asked for help, just kept surviving, one day at a time. And somehow that broke me, because while my son couldn't spare 5 minutes for a call, and my daughter skipped dinner to impress her boyfriend's parents, this boy was giving everything. every waking second, every dollar, every bit of strength for his father. There were no Father's Day cards or expensive meals, just loyalty, raw and unpolished. And in that, I saw a version of fatherhood I had long forgotten. I called a friend of mine at a nearby clinic, told him about Walter, pulled a few strings, arranged a free medical evaluation. Tyler was hesitant when I told him. "I don't want to owe you anything," he said. His voice was low but steady. "You don't," I replied. "You owe me nothing. But if you let pride get in the way of his treatment, you'll lose more than you're ready for." He said nothing, but his eyes softened. And the next morning, we carried Walter carefully, slowly, to my car and drove to the clinic. The diagnosis was rough but not irreversible. Severe respiratory infection, severe malnutrition, dangerously low immunity. But the doctors were hopeful. They said with rest, medication, and care, Walter could recover. They admitted him for a few days. And during those days, I brought Tyler meals, sat with him in the waiting room, and helped him apply to re-enter school. I didn't push. I just stayed. It was in those moments, quiet moments, between hospital visits and night walks and long drives, that something shifted. Tyler began to ask me questions. At first, small ones, about truck driving, about what kind of soup I made. Then deeper ones. Were your kids like me when they were young? Did you ever feel like they forgot what you gave up? I didn't lie. I told him the truth. "Yes," I said one night as we sat watching the city lights from the parking lot outside the clinic. "I gave everything I had." And somewhere along the line, they started thinking it was normal. Like it was my job to carry the weight and theirs to climb on top of it. He was quiet for a while. Then he looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "I don't know why you keep helping us, but I think I needed to meet someone like you." I didn't reply, just reached over and placed a hand on his shoulder. From that night, he started calling me Mr. Leonard less and just Leonard more. Eventually, it became Sir. Then, once, softly, he called me Pops. He laughed right after, said it as a joke. But I didn't laugh, because somewhere inside, something warm lit up again. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had lost my family. I felt like I had found one. It's been a few years since that night in the rain. I don't talk about it much, not because I'm ashamed or sad, but because some things don't need retelling when they've taken root so deeply inside you. They simply are. Like the quiet way a tree grows in the background, or the way your heartbeat reminds you you're still here. That's what Tyler became to me. Something steady, unexpected, and healing. A presence I didn't know I needed, and one I'm proud to call mine. Yes, I had 2 children by blood, but somewhere along the line, I gained a third by choice. Walter recovered slowly, but surely. The doctors were surprised by his resilience, especially for a man who had gone so long without proper care. I helped set them up in a subsidized apartment a few blocks from my place. Not charity, not obligation, just what anyone would do if they saw the kind of strength that family had shown each other. Walter worked part-time at a small community bookstore, and Tyler returned to school with renewed focus. He studied late into the night, sometimes at my kitchen table, sipping coffee he always claimed was too bitter, but drank anyway because it keeps me from dozing off. We started celebrating Father's Day together. Just us, me, Tyler, and Walter. No tuxedos, no silent dinners, no name tags on forgotten tables. Just 3 chairs, good food, and laughter that came from deep in the chest. One year, Tyler made me a handwritten card that said, "You showed up when no one else did. I don't need DNA to know who my real father is." I kept that card in my drawer next to my old paycheck stubs and Elise's childhood drawings. It still smells faintly like ink and truth. Elise eventually moved abroad with her boyfriend. She calls once in a while. Marcus is still busy, too busy. He texts on my birthday, sometimes on holidays, but always with a tone that feels more like obligation than affection. I don't resent them. I used to, but not anymore. I gave them everything I had when it mattered. I raised them, taught them kindness, and helped them follow their passions. I did my part. And if they chose to drift, that's not a reflection of failure. It's a result of distance I can no longer bridge on my own. But Tyler was different. He didn't just take what I offered. He noticed it, appreciated it. He made me feel like a father again. Not a wallet, not a background figure, but a man who mattered. When he graduated from college, he asked me to sit with Walter in the front row. He wore a clean suit and a wide grin, and when he took the stage, he didn't thank sponsors or programs first. He thanked me, said, I wouldn't be standing here if a stranger hadn't shown up during the worst night of my life. The crowd applauded politely, but I could barely clap. My hands trembled too much from the pride swelling in my chest. Later that night, after the celebration, he took me aside and said something that silenced the ache I didn't realize I still carried. I used to think I didn't have a real father, he told me. But you taught me that being a dad isn't about who you're born to. It's about who stays when it's hard, who listens when you're quiet, and who shows up even when you push them away. That's what you did. I looked at him, this grown man who once walked through rain with groceries and quiet desperation, and I saw my younger self, not in the way he looked or spoke, but in the fire he carried, the quiet loyalty, the determination to protect something even when the world stopped caring. You're my son, I said finally, whether the world sees it or not. He nodded. I know. That year, on Father's Day, we made a new tradition. No big events. No suits or speeches. Just breakfast at the old cafe near the park, a walk around the lake, and an evening of Tyler helping Walter with crossword puzzles while I grilled burgers on my tiny backyard porch. It wasn't fancy, but it was whole. It was real. And it was mine. The funny thing is, when you stop chasing what you think a family is supposed to look like, you finally start seeing what family truly is. It's not the perfect photo at a gala. It's not the obligatory texts or gifts sent from across the country. It's the boy who asks how your back is doing before he even puts his bag down. It's the man who thanks you every time he leaves your home, even if he's just borrowing a book. It's the quiet, happy Father's Day, Dad said with meaning, not just habit. I don't tell people I replaced my children. That's not what happened. What I found was something that had been missing in me for years, a sense of being wanted, not just needed, of being loved, not just relied on, of being seen as more than the man who signed the checks or fixed the broken faucet. And maybe that's why I still say, when someone asks that I have 2 kids, then I smile and add, well, actually, 3. Because that boy in the rain, he didn't just need a father. And I didn't just find a son. I found a reason to believe in family again. If this story touched your heart like it did mine, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. There's someone out there who might need to hear this, so share it with a friend, a parent, or someone who's ever felt unseen. And remember, family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about showing up when it matters most. Thank you for listening. We'll meet again in the next story.